Hi guys, welcome back to the vlog. It's Susie from Sue Salt and Stitches. Thanks so much for joining me again today. Today I am going to do a quick fire video to talk through my top 5 tips for setting up your sewing space for an efficient sewing session. I know a lot of you have been enjoying my nap time sewing tutorials. There'll be more of that coming up soon, but I just thought I'd show you how I set myself up before I start doing any sewing actually. They're just little bits and pieces that I've picked up over the years that I find really help with just speeding up my sewing process. I am not actually a super fast sewer by any means. I know there's a lot more efficient people out there than me, but these are the things that I do anyway, and I thought I would share them with you. So keep watching to find out. Okay, tip number 1 is setting up your workspace. And I have discovered that the best way of setting up is in a U shape. So I've got my sewing machine in the middle here. If I spin round, having a spinny chair is very helpful. If I spin round, I'm over here at my overlocker and back over here. This is why I had to get rid of my carpet as well. Back to my sewing machine. If I spin the other way, here's my ironing board. It means I don't have to stand up at all, walk across the room to iron out my pieces, my seams. I don't have to do that for doing, seam finishes. I can do on my overlocker and get straight back to the sewing. It's all very quick and easy. Okay, tip number 2 actually just follows on from tip number 1. And like I said, it's all set up in a U shape with your ironing board to one side beside your sewing machine. And a massive tip I would say is hopefully your ironing board can be changed to different heights. I think most of them can nowadays. Make sure your ironing board is set up at exactly the same height as your sewing machine. So again, you just have to spin around and start ironing. I keep my iron on while I'm sewing. It doesn't use up a lot of electricity doing that, and actually my iron doesn't have a auto cut off, so it will always be on. Just have to remember to turn it off if you're leaving the room. Don't leave it on if you're leaving the room. But if you're sewing, it's okay. And you can just iron your little seam without even getting up and then get back to your sewing. Okay, tip number 3 is to get your snips and put a ribbon or cord around them long enough that they hang down around your neck down to about there. I find this so invaluable. You're not searching around for where did I put my snips, where did I put them? You need your snips all the time, constantly when you're sewing. So if they're around your neck, they're constantly there and you can just do a quick snip, 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 and your threads are cut. You don't have to worry about where you last put your snips. They're around your neck. My only word of caution is they're sharp. So just be careful, use your common sense, and just be aware that you have a pair of sharp scissors around your neck. Also, I will say I only wear these when I'm in my sewing machine, at my sewing room, sorry. If I'm going out and I'm going to go and get my son, these come off, they get hung up, they're nowhere near my son. So make sure you keep them out of little hands' ways. So anyway, that is tip number 3. Tip number 4 is again wearing a tool, and I a while ago treated myself to this wrist pin cushion. It's by Bohin. I probably didn't pronounce that right, but I'll put the link down below. I bought it on Amazon and I absolutely love it. But you can buy lots of different types of wrist pin cushions, but I honestly find them invaluable. Your pins are always there. They're just on your wrist. When I'm sewing, I moved my sewing machine there to do tip number 3 there, but sewing machine back. If I'm sewing, while I'm taking the pins out, I just pop them into the wrist pin cushion. If I'm setting something up on my ironing board, which is where I'll maybe do some of the smaller pieces, my pins are right here beside me. I'm not constantly searching for, where did I put that pin cushion? You know, you can buy ones that, or make a pin cushion that ties on to your sewing machine. That's also a good idea, but it means it's always stuck to your sewing machine. I use this for when I'm cutting out as well. My pins are constantly on my wrist and I never lose them, and they're always there, and I just find it an absolute godsend. So that is a really, really top tip from me as well. And then my final tip, tip number 5, is to keep your tools right beside you. I know that sounds really obvious, but I have this little guy here. He normally lives up there on the shelf, but when I'm sewing he comes down, and in here I have all my small little tools that I might need. Very importantly, seam ripper is in there, and when I say seam ripper, lots of seam rippers. You can never have enough. I also have like a marking tool as well. If I've forgotten to mark on one of the pattern markings, I can do that very easily. And also another really important tool to have nearby is your seam gauge. Say you're pressing up a hem over here, you can have the seam gauge. We'll have, you know, say 2 inches, whatever, and you can make sure you're doing it right. But just having it in a little pot, or I also have a drawer here with needles and bobbins and all those sorts of things. If just having it right beside you, you don't have to be getting up, going across the room, searching for what you need. If you've got this little pot of tools that you know you're always going to be using when you're sewing right beside your machine, you're good to go. So guys, I really hope you found that quick fire video helpful. Do you do things differently? I'd love to hear how you set up your sewing station, your sewing workspace for when you're actually sewing. Do you have a wrist pin cushion, or do you do it a different way? I'd love to hear your ways. These are my ways that I set up the sewing space. People will do things differently, and we are all different, and we all have ways that we prefer to do it, but I just wanted to share how I do things. And hopefully you found it useful, and maybe some of you will pick up some of these tips and try them out. And so now I'm off to sew a toaster sweater, and hopefully that will be up on the following week on my vlog, so please do check that out. Do subscribe to my channel so that you get a notification for when that tutorial is up, and I hope to see you again all very soon. Bye guys!